Hello, everyone. This is Neil Foots, your host today for Denton Black Film Festival DBFF Soul Talk, and I am so excited about today's conversation. We will be chatting with Deanie Parker, who is going to walk us through this wonderful celebration we're having this year, the 50th anniversary of the Wattstax festival and music event, something that really became a cultural and iconic event and documentary, and a conversation that we're going to dive into in the few minutes that we have with Deanie, and so many stories to capture. But let me tell you just quickly about Deanie. Deanie was the director of public publicity, artists, and community relations for Stack Records. She has worked with unbelievable artists over the year: Isaac Hayes, Booker T and the MGs, Otis Redding, the Staple Singers, Rufus, Carla Thomas, Richard Pryor, the Dramatics, Johnny Taylor, Albert King, and so many others. She has been recognized by the University of Memphis, where she has received the College Achievement Award. She's won 2 Emmy Awards. One for a documentary, I Am a Man, about the 1968 sanitation workers strike in Memphis, a truly historic event, which we know Dr. Martin Luther King was part of. She is a 2011 Legends Award honoree for the Women's Foundation for Greater Memphis. And in 2021, she received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Association of Independent Music. She currently serves as Tennessee Arts Commissioner. And please, DBF family, and all others watching this, please welcome Deanie Parker to DBFF Soul Talk.
Thank you, Neil. That is what an outstanding introduction.
This is an honor.
Thank you so much. I want to make certain that all of my friends and acquaintances get a copy of this so that they will emulate you maybe in the future if this opportunity should occur again. Listen, Neil, I got to tell you, I've been watching what the Denton Black Film Festival has been doing since your inception. Mm-hmm. And you guys are just growing and taking on unbelievable significance nationally. And, you know, I love your format. I love it that that you're doing the whole ball of wax. You know, you're not just capturing the stories and telling them on film, but you're also incorporating into what it is you do music and you know, and education. And I think that somewhere I read your thing is all about educating, entertaining, and inspiring Black storytellers.
That's right.
We have a lot in common because, you know, I'm from out of Soulsville, USA, which is where Stax Records was located originally.
Right.
And today, where the Stax Museum of American Soul Music, the Soulsville Charter School, and the Stax Music Academy are located. And so you're taking film and doing the same thing that we're taking music, this music that was created some 50 years ago. And we're trying to preserve it, first of all.
Absolutely. We have to, you know, one thing that we're super conscious of here with DBF, which you captured throughout your careers, we have to tell our stories. We have to preserve our stories, and we have to tell our stories, you know, not only to share those with peer-to-peer, but for generations of younger folks and others who don't even know so much about this wonderful history that you've been a part of. You know, certainly this year with all the conversations about the 50th anniversary of this of the Wattstax festival, but you kind of dove in there at Stax Records. You know, everyone knows about Motown in a big ways, but they don't realize how important a role Stax Records played in the music industry and for so many musicians.
You're absolutely right, Neil. And it wasn't by design that Stax Records should not have had the visibility or the branding opportunities that Motown had. Motown, fortunately for them, was located in a major city in Detroit. And Memphis, on the banks of the Mississippi River, tucked away behind the cotton fields and, and on the edge of nowhere. We
Mhm.
had to do our thing a little differently when we decided that we wanted to corner the market uh, with rhythm and blues, and to feature
Mhm.
blues and a little jazz, and keep gospel alive, and
There you
focus on
go.
those wonderful spirituals that came across the state line from Mississippi.
Mm.
So Motown was slick. We studied them in Satellite Record Shop that was at the front of the entryway to Stax Records. We didn't plagiarize, if you will, but we
Mhm.
certainly studied them because they were so phenomenal that they really did set the tone where soul music was concerned
Mhm. Mhm.
globally. And so we knew that if we were in the same groove, so to speak, as Motown, that we could also get the attention of the radio announcers across the country and around the world.
Mhm.
We were so dependent at that time.
Well, people tend to forget, that for black music even to be played on stations and radio, and was pretty significant at the time. I had the opportunity to work for Tom Joyner for so many years, and he talked about growing up in Alabama and trying to get the local radio station to play black music, right? I mean, and we take it for granted now that granted, for the radio's still around, but streaming music, those were things that these were revolutionary, and you guys were trying to provide a platform for these artists to get their music out, right? And
Did you see? Did
tell
you
me
see that
how.
big smile that came across my face when you said Tom Joyner?
Yes, yes,
We
yes.
really relied on Tom Joyner, that terrestrial radio,
Hmm.
for exposing what we were creating at Stax Records.
And I think, Tom always talks about party with a purpose, and I think Stax Records was clearly all about that.
Yes.
At the time, for these artists and getting their word out, what were some of the challenges you faced? How were you able to get distribution for them? How were you able to get some of these stations to play their music?
Oh dear, that is a
That was a mouthful, wasn't it?
that was a mouthful. And so I'll try to simplify my answer. As you said, we didn't have the streaming, the downloads, the technology
Mhm.
uh, available then that we have now. In fact, at the time that I started at Stax Records, we didn't even have the facsimile. That's what the fax machine was called.
Mhm.
Remember that?
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, and so we had an incredible promotional force, a
Mm.
promotional force where we would engage, if you will. We hired um, men mostly. I think we had a couple of women. Effie Smith was one of them, and Novella Smith Arnold might have been another, but mostly men who put the latest Stax records that we wanted to have played on the radio in their attaches, and they would start out in their cars on Monday morning, and
Wow.
they had a route. They had
Mm.
specific parts of the country where they were assigned. It was all about relationships, Neil. It was so
Mm.
important to have relationships with the program managers at the radio stations and the disc jockeys. And so, without them, our
Mhm.
records would not have been on the turntables.
That's right.
So people like you and me, we would not have had an opportunity to hear those songs. And the disc jockeys were very, very special, and they were crucial.
Mhm.
The Tom Joyners and Rufus Thomas and Purvis Spann in Chicago at WVON,
Mhm.
and all of these, and Martha Jean Steinberg at WDIA. Uh,
Mhm.
these disc jockeys were the lifeblood of Stax Records because they were the conduits that ensured that our product was heard. They were our technology, so to speak.
That's
Back
right. That's
in the
right.
day.
I mean,
Uh,
because I think the other key thing too was that, you know, again, record stores weren't really around, right? I mean, even I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and Bed-Stuy, and the only place I remember buying records was there was a little corner store, and he sold everything else, and then he had some 45s in the back there, right? And you all were facing a different kind of marketplace as well.
yes, we were, but fortunately, there were many distributors located geographically throughout the United States, and their responsibility was to work with the rack jobbers, they call them, who would introduce the retailers to the latest 45s and albums that were available at wholesale prices for them to put in the retailers. And there were many retailers. You could go to Target, you could go to Walmart, you could go to, there were numerous record stores throughout America that sold music product exclusively, because we had the turntables then, and so you would
That's right.
go into that retail outlet. You would buy your needles, your spindles, your centers that you would put in the hole of the
That's
45.
right.
And you would buy your product. It was all inclusive, everything that you needed. It was like an apparel mart, if you will. The only thing was we were selling music product, and so you could buy record players, you could buy tape recorders. It was the whole ball of wax. The one thing that I loved about yesterday and how we were able to communicate, or rather to serve the consumer with our great music, was that we did not presume that the music that they liked in Los Angeles was the same thing that turned on New Orleans.
Okay.
That had Philadelphia standing on the edge of, because regionally the sounds were pretty different. And we were so sensitive to that when we were at Stax Records. I remember one of the first records that I had an opportunity to produce, actually the co-owner, Estelle Axton of Stax Records, and I decided that we were going to write a song for the Mad Lads. The Mad Lads was a group they were so talented. They were 4 young men, and Estelle ran the record shop. I'll tell you some more about that record shop. She ran the record shop, and she watched and listened to what was happening, what was popular, what songs were popular in various regions of the country. And we knew that on the East Coast, the Northeast Coast, that male groups who harmonized well and were soul artists, R&B artists, if you will, were very popular. And so she said, we need to write a song for these guys. And so she and I wrote I Want Someone was the title of the song. And I produced it and played keyboards on the record. And it was the Mad Lads' first biggest hit. Well, we did that because we knew that on the East Coast, we had no presence. And if we were to tap into that market and enjoy some of those record sales in that huge region, that we needed a group or an artist, if you will, that could compete. So those were the kinds of things that we had to do in order to be competitive. And of course, talking about those promotion men, Al Bell, who hired 99% of the promotions staff, knew which of his promotions men, including the late great Jack Gibson, to specialize in the kind of music that they would be responsible for promoting nationally. Oh, it was complicated. It was complex. It
Yes.
was but it was engaging, and it required networking. It required relationship building, and it
Hmm.
required an understanding of the consumers and a respect for their taste in rhythm and blues, soul music, gospel, jazz. We
Yeah.
didn't.
Well,
We
I
didn't.
think that's just fascinating because I think what you just told there was this really very sophisticated marketing effort to make sure the music that you produce reached the audience that would buy that music. And I
Right.
think sometimes we forget, again, in the digital age we live in, and that was really based off pure hitting the streets, getting on the phone,
That's right.
talking to people, understanding what kind of music people enjoyed, what they would buy, and how how they would engage with that to drive sales. And overall, I would imagine that if you got successful with one type of music in one part of the country, then you could begin to introduce other types of music to the same audience over time.
That's right. That's right. That's
Hmm.
right. And of course, Los Angeles, we were talking about Wattstax. Los
Yes.
Angeles was a very important market for Stax Records. And Los Angeles is a long way from Memphis, Tennessee. Um, but Al Bell is a very astute person. He
Hmm.
was a phenomenal promotions person, and he was a visionary. And I talk about Al Bell to the exclusion of Jim Stewart, because Al Bell really was the wind beneath our wings. Jim Stewart founded Stax Records,
Yes.
and he kept the car in the right lane, if you will.
Hmm.
Uh, and he established and introduced a style of music that is uniquely Stax.
Hmm.
The closest that you can get to the Stax sound is to drive down the street and round the corner to Willie Mitchell Boulevard at Royal Studios, which was then High Records, and listen to Al Green. And that, Neil, is
Um,
because we were a music community at that time.
yes.
The musicians and the writers, the artists, the producers, were very comfortable visiting Stax and working on some of our sessions. We were doing the same thing at High Records when time and scheduling permitted it.
Hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about Los Angeles and Wattstax. I mean that you know you know just I mean the background there for those of you who may not know about it. You should certainly Google it. You should definitely purchase the box set, and there's even a documentary you can watch via YouTube. But just imagine this is August 20th, 19.
I
Look
just
at
happened
that.
to look at that.
Oh,
That's
look at that.
the album cover of the repackaged Wattstax. And
See?
it is the most beautiful. It is the most beautiful salute to what we did in Los Angeles with
Mm.
this phenomenal music concert. At that time, 112,000 Black people could come together, and they had no guns. And it
Mm.
was peaceful. It was a beautiful, beautiful Sunday afternoon, if I remember correctly. God had blessed us with great weather. And
Mhm.
all of our artists had volunteered to perform.
Wow.
And the reason that we did it is because we understood what the people in Los Angeles were experiencing. Because living in the South, we had a triple dose of what they were getting out there in terms of
Mhm.
discrimination and inequality and what have you. And so um, all of our artists, as I said, volunteered to perform, and Stax
Mm.
Records financed the experience, the music festival
Yeah.
experience.
Now
Uh,
it was primarily just the festival itself, which again, again, I still get chills listening to Jesse Jackson open up, the Reverend Jesse Jackson open up
Yes.
concert with I Am Somebody, and then
Yes.
Lift Every Voice and Sing with Kim Weston. I mean, it
Yes.
just, oh my
Yes.
gosh. I mean, that those moments were just etched in. I think I can only imagine from the 112,000 that were there, that were just seemingly just in sync, and like you said, on living and singing and dancing to every great artist you guys brought on there.
All day long this went on. And of course, it didn't start on that day, as you may imagine, because this was months in the planning, because we were responsible for their housing, their transportation. We had to put the repertoire together, um, uh, 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 and all of the mechanics is what we were responsible for. And that's why I didn't get to sit out in the audience and enjoy it like the audience.
You were working the event. You
I
had to
was
make sure
working the event. I was trying to reason with Johnny Taylor to get him to understand that he needed to get dressed, because it wouldn't be long before he would be coming on before Isaac, and he just wouldn't cooperate, for example. But at any
I
rate,
can only imagine how many egos you had to take care of during that day.
oh, it was a beautiful day, and everybody, all of the Stax artists were captivated by the notion, first of all, of performing before over 100,000 Black people, where Jesse Jackson was on stage offering his litany, his I Am Somebody litany, as you referenced a moment ago, and getting to see these artists who they might never have seen before, because television wasn't available to us at that time, not in abundance, let me say it that way. And that was one of the reasons why Wattstax was filmed. It was filmed because that film was to have served as a promotional tool. Because remember, I said Memphis, Tennessee is it's located geographically so that it was a disadvantage for Stax Records, but a great advantage for Federal Express. Think about it.
That's true. Yes. Very interesting. Good point.
So we had Isaac Hayes and Johnny Taylor, Albert King, Rufus and Carla Thomas, the Staple Singers, William Bell, Eddie Floyd, the Bar-Kays. It was a phenomenal event. The emotions.
I mean, could you, as again, you were buried in the background and I've been where you've been, where you're just trying to keep the show flowing and keep it going. Did you realize how significant that was? It was a music event, but you also mentioned a critical thing, and is that doing this concert in Los Angeles was historically and intentional.
Yes.
And again, for not to we don't want to give folks a history lesson, but folks look up Los Angeles was like so many major cities in this country had been embroiled in riots in the 60s. Civil rights, social justice, that was what was driving this. And Watts itself had faced such a horrific period. And this concert at this time in this location was so impactful, because you could have done it in Memphis, right? You could have done it in Chicago. You could have done it in Detroit, but that wouldn't have been the same thing, right?
You're right. And Los Angeles was the place, because they had created a Watts Summer Festival to commemorate the 7th anniversary of the Wattstax Rebellion, as they called it. And so Al Bell had been watching this area for a long time, and he watched it with a great deal of interest because, as I said, he had witnessed himself firsthand, having grown up in Little Rock, Arkansas, angry white mobs and the intervention efforts of President Dwight Eisenhower, white children jumping out of school windows to avoid contact with those Black children who were integrating the schools in Little Rock. And so he had a real sensitivity to what Black people were experiencing in Los Angeles and Watts more specifically. And when he came to Stax Records, he continued that philosophy that Jim Stewart and Estelle Axton had introduced there. And that was a philosophy of inclusiveness. I like to tell people that I like to tell them the truth. And the truth is that if Jim Stewart and Estelle Axton had not started Stax Records in the heart of what eventually became an all-Black community. And it was a mixture of blue collar and professional Blacks, because we have an historical Black college located right around the corner from where the Soulsville campus is today, Lemoyne College.
Oh, there you go. Yes, yes.
And so if they had been anybody other than who they were, people who didn't believe in the golden rule, if you will, doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, there might not have been a Stax Records. And if there had been a Stax Records, it certainly would not have had the legacy that it does today. They were not judgmental. They opened the doors when they moved into the neighborhood. Estelle was the parenting kind of person because she had 2 children of her own. Jim was baptized in Ray Charles music because he was a country fiddler. When he first began, he played the violin of the fiddle. And he heard Ray Charles, what did I say? And he always reminded us that it was over. It was never the same. His appreciation for music was altered forever. And so he wanted to be in the music business because he loved music. And they found this old movie theater in a community that was transitioning because white people were moving out of Memphis and going east. And they kept the concession area and turned it into a record shop. I told you I was going to get back to that. Estelle Axton operated the record shop. And I always refer to it as our Department of Research and Development, because it was in that record shop where she sold those records to people that she learned firsthand what their taste in music was. She would also gauge the tempo of the music that was most popular. And she would observe, as I said earlier, that the East Coast was enjoying male groups that harmonized well. So she would take that information that she was gathering firsthand in the record shop back to the studio where Booker T and the MGs were. And she would say to them, you need to listen to this record over the weekend because this is what the people are buying. This is what the taste in music is. And music, Neil, at that time changed styles as frequently as women changed their wardrobe. That was pretty frequent. And so you had to be on top of your game. And so, Jim's role was to define, if you will, what the formula would be for Stax music. And he didn't drive that. He listened to Al Jackson on those drums. He listened to Louis Steinberg or Duck Dunn after that on the bass. He listened to Booker T. Jones on the keyboards. He listened to Steve Cropper on the guitar. He listened to the Memphis Horns. He listened to Otis Redding and what Otis Redding brought to the Stax Studios, because Otis Redding really is the father of the Memphis Horns. The Memphis Horns were a part of our sound that made it distinctively different, and by design, because it took the place of background singers.
Yeah, there you go.
The songs. And so Jim did not dictate what it was that Stax music became, or what the Memphis sound became, for which he can be credited.
There you go.
But he allowed that integrated group of musicians to feel the music, to interpret the art, to create the sound that felt good to them and moved the world at the same time. And he canned it. He put it in the deep freezer, he put it in the mason jars, he put it.
I love that. Now, there was a lot of conversation about this, the entertainment value of music and the message value of music.
Yes.
What kind of conversations did you have on that? Because again, there was part of this country, and as you said, every part of the country was different, that wanted I just want to put on a record and just be fine. But other people and other musicians were motivated by telling and motivating audience. How did you guys balance some of those entertainment versus political message, music?
I have to say, Neil, that we didn't really get caught up in that, because Stax Records was a utopia for us.
Okay.
Stax was where we were able to go and to enjoy and explore and to develop our creativity musically without wondering what was going on outside the doors. We really didn't care. But we also understood that when we exited Stax Records, we were going back into the real world, back into our segregated neighborhoods, back to our segregated churches, back to the kinds of discriminations that we experienced every day. This didn't happen overnight, but I can tell you that music has been one of the key tools that has provided some kind of balance in this country.
Yes.
Because it has allowed the races, the genders, all of us to come together because of a common love that we have. And something that is genuine, something authentic. If you're playing from your heart and your soul, you can't get more authentic than that.
There you go.
know, and I'm not saying to you that we didn't have our differences. What we believed, our culture, our traditions, we didn't dispense with those when we came into Stax Records, but we learned how to understand and appreciate our differences in an intelligent and peaceful way. And we also learned to, to respect each other. And that's what it was all about. I hate so badly that those old sock hops that we used to have, and the bandstands, and a soul train, and those.
There you go. Music just to play music and have fun
and to pull us together. I know that my hair is white and I've got a few years on me, but I just think that we are not. We don't know each other. We don't care about each other, and too many things get in our ways. We're so in our corners and gullible about things that are untrue, but when we were in the music stores, thumbing through the 45s and reading the liner notes and enjoying the covers, and and going home with it and having those backyard parties, and we didn't care what color you were, whether you were wearing pants or whether you were wearing a dress. We had something in common, and it was bigger than.
You got it. I want to take a moment, because I think, again, I go to the Wattstax, festival that day as a moment, and we have a trailer that I want to just play real quick for us, for our audience, so they can get a snapshot, if they haven't seen it already, that this might pique their interest. And then I want to come back, because I think what you just said here about how music really that day was about people just coming together, and it really was a metaphor for, regardless of race and conflict and everything, let's just enjoy each other and the power that we have, and how music is the bridge. So if we can have that clip real quick, that would be great.
This is a beautiful day. It is a new day. It is a day of black awareness. It is a day of black people taking care of black people's business. I am black, beautiful, proud. I must be respected. I must be protected. Come on, children, look at me. If you don't respect yourself, ain't nobody gonna give a good girl. Nah, brother Rush. I'll play the blues for you. Baby, don't you know, no other? If loving you is wrong, I don't wanna be right. Thank you. Right on. Thank you.
Ugh, wow.
Neil, when I came out, when I came to the showing the other evening in
Yes.
Dallas, I got to tell you, I thought about that showing at the theater all the way back on I-30 to
Oh
Memphis.
my, that's great.
And I listened to Wattstax because I really had not listened to the entire concert in probably 15 years or longer. And it transported me back to that.
You were right there, right? You were right
It was
there.
right there. But the thing that was striking to me about that was that Stax, without knowing it at the time, I'm not sure we were intentional about captivating, or rather capturing and preserving our culture. And when I compared Black people today in terms of how they think and how they act in some areas with where we were on August the 20th in 1972, it's been 50 years, but it seems as though we're still in 1972 in many ways. And I am both pleased about that because it is evidence for those who care and those who are interested, so that through your organization, through the Denton Black Film Festival, you can go to your library and show people what it was like then and what we were doing with our music. But it also serves to validate the value of preserving our culture in image on film, so that we can study ourselves, enjoy ourselves, celebrate ourselves, and use it for a myriad of purposes. I was just on cloud nine myself.
I bet you were.
That young lady that you saw with the red and white polka dot dress,
Yes,
in your clip, who's to say that wasn't me when I did come out from behind backstage?
I love it. I love it. I mean, you just every time you watch a clip and there's somebody, you just smile. I mean, Dean, could we do this again? Could we bring those kinds of artists together again? Different time, different kinds of artists. But is that, could we? Is there any way to recreate that in today's time?
I think you can do anything you want to do.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
believe that. I really believe it. But do you want to do it? Do you
Mhm.
want to
Okay.
do it with the same? Of course, the purpose would be different,
Yes.
but the end game could be the same. That we all come together and we share our music and we enjoy it, because that music is indelible. It still makes me feel as good today as it did the day
There
I
you
went
go.
to the studio and listened to the playback.
That's right. That's right. And you got a chance to hear from the really rough cut all the way through
That's
to the
right.
final produced version.
That's
So
right.
I'm
Before the
sure
mix.
there's some songs that you probably were like, oh, I don't know if that did you. Let me go to that moment. Were there times where you were like, how the heck are they going to take this? How is Isaac Hayes going to make this song even a hit?
Right.
Were there times like that where you were sitting in that back room and listen to the artists come through?
Yes, I didn't always pick the hits. There were some surprises.
Mhm.
Believe me, there were. Um, you know, if I could recreate Stax as it was, and well, we're doing it. Actually, we're doing it with the Stax Music Academy as I think
Yes.
about it. But the missing part is that too many of our masters, the inventors, the creators, the artists are no longer with us today. And
Mhm.
there
Yeah.
is nothing like when Isaac was living, um, when Rufus was living, when Mabel John was still with us,
Mm.
and a number of other artists, to have a session with our children about who these artists were, let them listen to the music, or and they were learning it already, but they had not been able to put the face with the music.
There you
They had
go.
an opportunity to touch the heart and feel the spirit of
Hmm.
the creators of this music. That's what's missing. And I
Hmm.
just, you just, that's what makes me sad about this experience.
Yeah, yeah. As you think about it, and I'm sure it's now that you're beginning to tell more of these stories. What are some of the lessons that we can take away? I think you've alluded to some of them about this sense of music being as this ultimate, ability to collaborate and bring people together. Are there other lessons we can take away from what Stax Records did, what Wattstax was, that we can apply to today?
Well, Neil, Black people are probably, and I know I'm biased because I'm Black, um, but I think that Black people are probably some of the most creative geniuses on earth, especially when it comes to music and the arts.
Hmm.
Um, and what we can take away from this, the Denton Black Film Festival is already doing it.
Mm.
Don't stop. Create um, a rainy day fund for yourselves,
Mm.
because what you're doing is so crucial, because you're helping to ensure that we have a library with what life and Black life in particular was like and is like today. And you're encouraging young filmmakers to understand and to value using their skill and creativity to document
Mm.
what we have done while we are here. We are a
Hmm.
people. And
Yes.
that's why I've given my life, I think, to serving the Soulsville Foundation, because I know that it's painful when I look around and I don't see the next Albert King in the making.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's 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 painful when I know that Pop Staples is no longer there, but we don't have a Pops in the wings.
Mm.
You know, Isaac Hayes was a genius. He was a master. What
Mm.
he heard in his head was an orchestra.
Wow.
Otis Redding, who died much too soon, he left his mark. Where is
Yeah.
the next Otis? We have to value what it is we're creating, and we have to preserve it, and we have to show it again and again, because you and I know that what they're attempting to do, those who are powerful and privileged, is to erase our culture, which is the first thing that happens when a country takes over another country. They get rid of all of your art, they get rid of all of your articles, your books, all of the things that say, that show, that confirm that you were here and you made your mark. So we're in the same business, and I just so respect and admire what you're doing through the Denton Black Film Festival, and any way that we can. I got to tell you what my favorite year was, by the way.
Please.
It was when you brought Kirk Whalum in, because it was such a perfect blend of entertainment, music, education, and film.
Yes.
And you know, you guys coordinated so beautifully. So,
thank you.
You know, and we're trying to do the same thing with music. We're trying. We're so fortunate that we are in partnership with Concord.
Okay.
Concord Music Group. Concord is how they are branding themselves, as Concord, because that album that I showed you, well, actually, it's repackaging 12 CDs, the entire Wattstax Festival concert.
Okay.
The packaging, the time and the effort, the finances and the creativity and the promotion that is ongoing now. And I tell you, these guys started working on this project at least 3 years ago in preparation for the 50th anniversary. I value Soulsville's relationship with Concord, because it is that kind of partnership that enables us to be able to save what we have, to keep it in the vault while also sharing it. And I encourage all of the Denton Black Film Festival supporters to dig deeper into Wattstax through Concord, through that website, because if you want a full dose, if you want, and once it's gone, by the way, here's my commercial.
Oh, please go ahead.
Once the supply is gone, Neil, it's over. You're going to have to go on eBay or in your grandmother's closet or someplace to find this.
Had to find that stack of.
That's right. It is a beautiful.
Albums, right?
It's a beautiful presentation. It is a beautiful first-class presentation, a reenactment, if you will, of not a reenactment, but
yeah.
Repackaging is the word I'm looking for, of the Wattstax concert, that the actual concert, the music from that happened 50 years ago on August 20th, 1972. It was a happy day.
It was a happy day, and I think
everybody want a piece of it, you know.
Well, and I think what's beautiful about it, all the ages of the children who are out there. You know, I think, for anyone listening today, this has just been wonderful, because I think, this music, which I think is kind of interesting, because every one of the artists that performed there probably are currently being covered by some artists today, right?
That's right. That's right.
There's some reference to some of those songs that was sang 50 years ago that some musician, and God bless them for recognizing, or producer recognizing, that this is the heart and soul that is going to bridge the gaps, bridge the generations. Yes. Started out with Stax Records in some way. So we really treasure your gifts and your stories, and helping to tell this, hopefully around the country, to so many more people about this treasure that, it is an American treasure. It's just not about a Black history, but I think you have really said that this, talk to anybody about their favorite music, and they're going to mention an Otis Redding. They're going to mention an Isaac Hayes song. They're going to mention, the Bar-Kays. This is going to be a song that regardless of race, around the world, people are going to relate to. So we really appreciate your time today.
And I thank you for the invitation to be with you today.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we have been talking to Deanie Parker, who is just rich with so much history about Stax Records, about Wattstax 50 years anniversary. The Denton Black Film Festival had the wonderful pleasure of doing a screening of the movie and had such a wonderful conversation then. And now we wanted to share this with everyone else, part of those who are part of the DBFF family and those who are new to DBFF. And thank you so much, Deanie, for your continued support of what we're doing here at DBFF, and looking forward to future conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Remember to follow us on social.